Hello, you boring lot. And thankfully, this morning we are feeling, I hope anyway, a little bit more positive because Arsenal take a 1-0 victory back to the Emirates to play Sporting in the second round of this quarter-final. And hopefully, we will progress to the semi-final and it will lay the foundations for a strong end to the season. A couple of days ago, it didn't look like that. It was all doom and gloom. We'd gone out of the Carabao Cup final to Man City with a bit of a whimper. We didn't really show up with a rotated squad against Southampton. And to yesterday, we were back to winning ways against Sporting. It was a tough watch. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about why this game in isolation was so important. For me, it was a really strong shadow of 2011 where we were doing really well and then all of a sudden we fell off a cliff. And the games literally line up. So in 2007, we lost the Carabao Cup final to Birmingham, and that was on the 27th of February. We went out of the Champions League on the 8th of March, and then we went out of the FA Cup on the 12th of March. So within 12 days, the season was practically over. And then when you fast forward to 2026 and you look at our fixtures, we lost in the League Cup final to Man City on the 22nd of March. We were out of the FA Cup on the 4th of April. So this fixture yesterday was so important in terms of getting the job done, not derailing, and keeping on track for the rest of the season. So for me, this was super important. I wanted to see a strong response from Arsenal. The lineup was better. The lineup was stronger. We had some players who returned to the lineup who were really important. The likes of Gabriel, the likes of Saliba, having those two at the back, so significant for this club. Raya back in the sticks. Exactly what we needed to be able to go into this game with a little bit more confidence. So let's just talk about Sporting's home record then. Sporting are really strong at home. And, you know, you have to look at it and think like Arsenal, this would not be a game where you're going into it with loads of confidence, not just because of our form, but because of the way Sporting play at home as well. So Sporting have won 17 in a row, scoring 53 goals and only conceding 8. And in that run, right, they beat PSG, Porto and Marseille. And not to mention that they had that amazing comeback victory against Bodo Glimt as well. So at no point would you be looking at this and thinking, right, Arsenal are going into this as the favourites. If anything, we were the underdogs. And to add to that, Arsenal had never won a round of 16 game above in Portugal. So in terms of the numbers, in terms of the history, in terms of the performances, in terms of the momentum and the overall form of the team, this was not a game where Arsenal were going into it with huge amounts of confidence. So to be able to turn up and get the victory is really significant for Arsenal. And I think it lays the foundation for the rest of the season. I'm not going to pretend I'm massively confident against playing Bournemouth at the weekend, but at least we can go in with a win under our belt and think, okay, the system worked. We got the job done. So let's talk about the team. Let's go through the team really quickly. Raya was clearly our most important player. He showed why we missed him in the Carabao Cup final and in the FA Cup, and he pulled off at least 3 really significant saves and was a deserving man of the match. So it was great to see Raya back in the team, but more importantly, it was important to see him back in the team and making those incredible saves that we know that he is capable of. And, you know, when you've got a goalkeeper behind you who's capable of doing that, it makes everyone else feel so much more confident in front of you. Gabriel relaxes, Saliba relaxes. You know, it allows Arsenal to control the tempo a little bit more. Having Raya back in the goal for that game was so important for Arsenal yesterday, but also for the rest of the season. White still looks vulnerable. And I think that's really concerning. We need to be thinking about that because he just looks so insecure and anxious all the time. And, you know, I think Arteta has to hold some of this a little bit as well. I know that our Ben White has had knock after knock after knock, but at the same time, for him, he's basically coming into this now like he's in pre-season rustiness, right? He's played so little football that he looks like a player who's trying to get fit for pre-season. And so he's coming in now to crunch time in the Champions League and in the Premier League, and he's expected to perform at a certain standard that he just isn't capable of, maybe anymore, but also just at this moment because of his lack of game time. Zubimendi continues to frustrate fans, I think. Slow build up, kind of lots of sideways and backward passes. And I thought that the caveat of that is that I thought Odegaard was actually quite good. And one of the things that I would personally like to see, and I'll show you the lineup at the end, is I actually think that Odegaard is naturally going back that way because he's having to pick up the pieces where Zubimendi isn't playing the ball forward. And I think that a natural progression for Odegaard could be to drop back into almost like a deep line playmaker role and playing the way Jorginho did, actually. So you could have someone like a Rice in the 6, but then you could also have Odegaard in the 8 as a deep line playmaker, and it gives you that double pivot if you want as well. Odegaard isn't as vulnerable on the ball as people give him the jip for, and actually I think he's stronger than he is given credit for. So I think there's an option there for Odegaard to play more in an 8 and give a deep line playmaker option, which would then free up a more expressive and maverick-like 10. Having said that, I think Havertz and Gyökeres are continuing to look pretty good up front together. Again, when Havertz came on, the game opened up. You can credit Havertz for that if you like, but I also think that Martinelli did his bit as well. But the interchange between Gyökeres and Havertz works. Or even if you're not a fan of it, it works better than other systems that we have in place. So, for example, having Odegaard high up in the 10 doesn't work as well as having Havertz high up in the 10 to rotate with Gyökeres. And Gyökeres, I feel sorry for the guy. He looked so isolated again yesterday, and I genuinely don't believe it's his fault. You know, when a player signs to your team and you just decide that they are your player and you're going to protect them and you're going to defend them. For me, that's Gyökeres. I think Gyökeres deserves better, and I just don't think he's getting it. And I think the best of what we've seen from him has been with a Havertz or an Eze behind him. So with that being said, this is the kind of lineup I would personally like to see for the remainder of the season. If everyone is fit and if everyone is available, there might be some changes there, and I'll go through them as I go along. So I'd like to see Raya in goal for the remainder of the season. That goes without saying. Timber when fit, because White is just looking too vulnerable. Saliba and Gabriel, obviously. Calafiori, because I think he offers more of an attacking option than Hincapié. Hincapié is also injured, but I think Calafiori gives more to someone like a Trossard or a Martinelli. Trossard and Martinelli both are not having good seasons, but we have to play one of them. Either that or you're going to bring over Madueke, and I'm not sure that's the right place for him either. So Calafiori behind a Trossard or a Martinelli, that gives you the overlap option. He's also a bit of a maverick player as well. For me, I'll be playing Rice at the 6 and Odegaard at the 8. I think Odegaard offers that deep line playmaker option. I think he plays, I think he's better at controlling the pace of the play, and I just think that's what Zubimendi was meant to be brought in for, and he's not been doing that. So I think Odegaard might be an option there. That will give you a fit Saka. Hopefully he plays against Bournemouth. Havertz and Eze interchange. They both do more for Gyökeres than other options have. Trossard on the left, and then Gyökeres up front. For me, I think that's a team that takes us to the Premier League title. It might take us a little bit deeper in the Champions League. I don't think we win the Champions League personally, but I do think that this takes us to the Premier League title. And one final thing before I wrap up today. A quick you're welcome, because with Arsenal's victory yesterday, that secures 5 Champions League places for the Premier League next year. So that means one of the likes of Liverpool or Aston Villa or Chelsea will also be going to the Champions League next year. I know you won't thank us, but you're welcome anyway. With that being said, I think I'm going to wrap up the video here. Thank you guys for watching. Always appreciate it. Please like, please subscribe, and help me to help the channel grow. And as always, up the Gunners.